When there is a country asking the related internet authority to remove another country's ccTLDs or the IP address, how could a neutral public sector to react on the request? This is not a fanciful situation, but a real news event. According to the news report, Ukraine is trying to get Russia removed from the internet. Then Russia has been pushing out propaganda with the aim to disinform and promote violence. Raised by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Ukraine sent requests to Internet Corporation for Assignments and Numbers (ICANN) and RIPE Network Coordination Center (RIPE-NCC), asking to revoke the related internet sources of Russia's ccTLD and IP address either permanently or temporarily.
We are not here to talking about a political issue. We are not here to talking about the emotional, or we are not going to do the news report. Basically, we like to go through the technical documentation, such as ccTLD in RFC 1591, and the principle and the guideline for the delegation and administration of the ccTLDs.
This is a challenge to the fundamental nature of the internet. However, both ICANN and RIPE NCC rejected Ukraine's request, mainly because the internet should be open and neutral and should not serve political purposes.
We believe firmly, the executive board of the RIPE NCC believes firmly and has done so in official board statements that the registration of internet resources should not be used for political reasons. No, this is a very difficult point to make when we are in a state of war. My Ukrainian friends, my Ukrainian colleagues, their families are in terrible situations. Bombs are hitting their homes, their streets, their work, and this discussion gets soon very emotional. I, however, firmly believe that we are building the internet in order to make the world a better place, in order to make people be able to communicate. And I do believe that that is the ultimate goal, and that is what should be driving us. Communication should be there no matter what conflict we're in, and we should not be used as a political tool.
Hence mentions that is a background for the RIPE NCC, stating clearly that they have great sympathies for the request, but they cannot take any action if people think about it the other way as well. If somebody is actually doing cyber warfare from a range of IP addresses, it's important that the registry is accurate to see who is actually behind and take other actions. Therefore, we are not only talking about cyber threats, but also misinformation as much. If we are going to make rules, we need to think holistically about this. Can anyone suggest other perspectives on the issue?
We should consider from different regions, two different regions. The first region is from internet governance perspective. For example, all the policy I discussed previous, like CCPDP4, variant management, the selection process, or any confusion similarity. All the policy, all the guideline was developed by the community. So let's belong to internet governance region without any international treaty or international law to regulate us how to going to make a proper selection for the country code. So that's from internet governance region. We have policies dealing with that kind of selection for country code. We also intended to have a policy to handle the deselection requirement from a country code. That's from internet governance region. So internet governance region can define their own policy to make such a decision. Even with today's session topic, RFC 1591 already mentioned what kind of policy we're going to adopt for the ccTLD.
Regarding removing certain domain names, one believes that there are no other choices except following the law, especially in the Asia-Pacific region. In terms of the situation in Japan, Akinoli mentions the operations were transferred from APNIC to JPRS as an organization responsible for managing and administering in 2002.
.jp domain names used to be administered by the APNIC in the name of the Jim Rai, who is the president of the APNIC at the time. Then actually the ARIN report clarified there are quite vast support for that redelegation to the JPRS, then which was demonstrated by the fact that the JPNIC General Assembly agreed and approved that kind of that redelegation at the time, and then the JPNIC itself was deemed as the representing the Japanese internal community at the time, at least. Then that kind of fact check is done by done in the ARIN report, and then it is filed as the redelegation process, and then that's simply the Japanese community agreed to have that redelegation from JPNIC to JPRS. That's something demonstrated there.
As a private company that can exercise flexible and agile management, JPRS improves its services with fewer limitations. Following the ruling principle of the DNS, the moderator Guowei Wu drives the discussion to talk about country names and three-letter codes, which are within more complicated status nowadays.
So the three-letter code COM actually represents the Comoros, which is a small island country off the coast of Africa. So, if you can imagine that country saying, we want our three-letter code back. The one that circling back to Macau is interesting. I guess this is something that maybe some companies would be interested because it's MAC. And .mac would be pretty cool, I think. It seems like most people forgot, but in that document, there is also the mentioning of ISO 639. It's a language code. GAC has also asked for blocking application of language codes in top-level domains. But that is knowing that .pro is actually represents a particular language, was already in the zone. And subsequent GNSO policies actually eventually ignored that recommendation from the principles that you quoted.
When we're talking about ccTLD administrator appointment, it looks like it's based on the local government and the local internet community. Then the next one is we are interested in talking about the redelegation, because right now in the early March the request is a redelegation issue, or somehow it's take it off, remove the delegation. But this is the interesting thing is, if you look at this document, when he talking about the redelegation, it's still only on the responsibility of the decision by the local government and the local internet community.
Since the situation varies significantly between countries, the framework intended to help establish a proper procedure to fix the argument in cyberspace seems to have a long way to go.